What's up, y'all? It's your boy, Mr. Cheap Sense here. And this is probably going to be a long video. I thought about doing this in two different parts, but I decided to go ahead and just do one big video because I've already done a spring list. I could interchange that, but this video actually is a totally different topic than spring and summer and whatever. But I really want to talk about application of fragrances, like where to spray, and I'm going to talk about how many sprays and fragrances that you wear in specific times, such as fall and winter, spring and summer. That's really how I'm going to do this video. So without further ado, let's get to it. Now, one thing I need people to understand is, as a reviewer, and y'all please pay attention to what I'm saying to you, because people get butthurt when it comes to things that we say. We're only like guides. We're like signs that you see on the road. It helps navigate you in the right direction. So if you see a sign that says one-way street or one-way side, you don't go down that side. You know, you only travel one way on that road. You don't come back down that road. That's what we do as reviewers. We just guide you in the direction of, you know, how many sprays to apply. We tell you certain seasons to wear certain fragrances. We tell you about prices, where you can find some of these fragrances and stuff like that. And people get upset when they hear me say how many sprays I do. That's just for me. I'm not telling anybody else to spray the amount of sprays that I spray, because up here it's a mental thing and I'm not wrapped too tight. So I feel like I do whatever I want when I want. These are my fragrances. If I want to spray 20 sprays of a fragrance, that's what I do. I get comments all the time saying, my God, man, such and such amount of sprays, don't you think that's overkill? I'm like, for me, it's not. Especially if I know people are not complaining, and I don't do this where I know I'm going to be in an enclosed environment around a bunch of people. I don't wear something polarizing and wear whatever sprays I'm going to say I wear in a little bit. I know better. I'm not slow. I'm not stupid. So first off, let's talk application of fragrances. And I'm going to use something that I don't have in this list. So I'm going to pick up Armani Code, and I'm not going to spray it because I'm going to have to take a shower in a little bit and get dressed and step out for a minute. I got to go pick my daughter up. But for the most part, when I apply, when I first got into the game, I didn't know anything about it. I just grabbed something and just spray everywhere. Now it's more strategic. I have watched, and I actually watched a video before I started this video. Jeremy Fragrance and another guy was talking about application of fragrances and how many sprays. And so I started doing a little research because people were asking me when I first started, how many sprays should they apply? I had no clue. I just grabbed something and just spray it wherever. And now it's more strategic, and I use pulse points. I go one behind each ear. The back of the neck is really not a pulse point, but I do the back of my neck. So that's more than enough you need up here. And then I hit the shoulder areas on my shirt, because I feel like if you hug somebody, or, you know, your significant other, your girlfriend, side chick, whoever is hugging you, and their face is going to be where? Here or here, and it's going to be close to the ears anyway, and she's going to be smelling that, or he, depending on what you like. So then I go one on each wrist, another pulse point, inner elbows. And I overheard Jeremy telling this other guy that he sprays the back of his ankles. And it didn't make sense until he explained it. He explained it as if he's in a restaurant and he's walking by, people are sitting, and if you're tall like I am, I'm 6'4", I'm way up here. Most of the time, people are not going to smell you. And if it's something that's a little polarizing, that puts a nice scent cloud around you, they will be able to smell you. But if you spray your ankles and when you walk by, they're going to pick that up as they're sitting down. It makes sense, but I don't do that. I'm just expressing to y'all what he said. So if you want to try that, then go ahead, feel free, because I feel like I want to try it once all this corona stuff is, over and done with and I can hit a restaurant. I'll try it. But for the most part, like I said, behind each ear, one on the back of the neck, I do both wrists, both inner elbows, and if it's a date or something like that, then I'll go ahead and hit my shoulders. So that's actually 9 sprays if I do my shirt. If I don't, that's 7 sprays. And my core number is 7. That's how many sprays I do of almost any fragrance I have in my collection, whether it's something polarizing or not. And I do it because I like to do that. I understand these days fragrances are watered down, and most of the time don't last past an hour and a half as far as projection, which is the strongest point in most fragrances' lifespan. Most of the time they hit the mid and the dry down, it sits a little bit closer to you and it's more tolerable in most cases. So that's me. That's how many sprays I go with. And that's where people lean back and give me the bitter beer face, like 7 sprays. Yeah, I do 7 sprays. And like I said, they're my colognes. I don't have any complaints. I don't know what else to tell you all. I usually spray before I leave the house. So by the time I get to where I'm going, depending on the lifespan or the projection time, it's already settled down on me anyway, so it really doesn't matter. So let's talk, since we're in spring, going into summer soon, I'm going to talk a little about the lighter, fresher springtime scents. And one of these doesn't really fall into this category, but I can consider this one I can spray 7 sprays of and get away with it. A lot of other people don't feel you can, but I personally have worn more than 7 sprays of this to the hospital before. And I like, it didn't offend anyone. So anyway, the first one I want to talk about is one that is perfect for springtime. It's very crisp, refreshing, invigorating, and the performance is not the best on it, so you can reapply if need be. But it's from the house of Mugler. It is Mugler Cologne. And I really, really, really like this fragrance, especially, like I said, now it's springtime. It's a little cool in the mornings. It's in the 80s, pushing the 90s sometimes in the daytime. Excuse me. But this is one you can go more than 7 sprays if need be, because it's not polarizing. It's not anything that's going to overpower you or make people's nose hair singe or anything like that. This is the epitome to me of a spring, summertime type fragrance. This is one I would do 7+ sprays if need be. Then you have something like Mont Blanc Legend Spirit, which is another spring, summertime type fragrance. The only thing I will say about this fragrance is the fact that it does have a sweetness to it that if you go more than 5 sprays, sometimes it may get a little bit annoying, being that it's a little sweet. But I do 7, so it doesn't really bother me at all. So you may have to watch your sprays on this one, because sweeter fragrances tend to be a bit cloying when it comes to heat, and it'll annoy you, and it will annoy people around you if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. So make sure if you're wearing something fresh that's a little bit fruity or sweet, you may not want to go more than a few sprays of this one. But the performance on this one is not the best in the super high heat, so you may want to go an extra spray or 2 before you leave the house. Excuse me, y'all. I had the fan directly on me last night and the AC on 70, and it was super cool in here. Now my sinuses, if you can hear me talking kind of funny, my sinuses sound like they're stuffy. One of my favorites for spring and summer, although I have had a lot of issue with this particular fragrance, being that to me, there's a note or something in this that is off-putting to me, and it makes it smell like Raid Roach Spray. But the compliment factor is there every time I wore this, and it is from the house of Versace. It is Versace Man Eau Fresh. Now, I did have a smaller, I think it was like a 30 ml bottle of it, and I picked this up maybe around Christmas. Only reason why I did pick this one up is because a bigger bottle of this is because the compliment factor was amazing off of this fragrance. I've worn this around females several times, and every time I wear it, I get told I smell really good, but all I smell throughout the day is Raid Roach Spray. This is one you can go more than 7 sprays if need be and not offend anybody. It's not polarizing. It's a fresh, kind of fruity, because it does have some fruit in it. I think there's like kiwi. I think it was, I want to say guava or something in this. I can't remember all the notes in it. I could be wrong on the kiwi also. But there are some fruity nuances in this. Very nice fragrance. I'm going to spray this. Yeah, that's nice. I just get a Raid Roach Spray type vibe from it though. But this is one you can do more than 7 sprays if need be and not offend anybody. Perfect for the high heat. I feel so anyway. Now, this one is one of my favorite cheapies. It does have some fruity nuance to it. You can go more than 7 sprays on this one, but being that it is a little bit sweet, you may want to just do maybe 5 sprays of this, depending. But it's Nautica Voyage. Performance on this one is not the best in most cases. It varies for different people, as you know, body chemistry and all that good stuff, climate. This one works well for me when I wear it. I can't vouch for anybody else, but personally speaking, this is a great fragrance, very inexpensive. You can pick this up almost anywhere. I've been known to do on this one at least 10 sprays, especially with Man Eau Fresh and the Mugler one. I've done more than 7 sprays on those, so that works well also. Now, one that is, I could have used like Varvatos Artisan Pure also in this performance off of me, and this actually is the one that Jeremy Fragrance used in the video I just watched. He says the performance is good on this one. I say it's just below average. When I've worn this, I didn't get the best performance out of it, which is why I say you can go more than 7 sprays on this and be good and not offend anybody. It doesn't last long off of my skin. I know other people may say they get, you know, decent performance out of it, but me personally, I might be pushing about 4, maybe 4.5 hours of longevity. I get probably like 30 minutes to an hour of projection out of it, and that's about it. Which is why I didn't care for this fragrance when I had it the first time. I sold it, and then it came back to me again. But it's not a bad fragrance. But this one, and I also could have used a different one, which is the L'Homme Ideal Cologne, but I chose not to. I went with this one, Dior Homme Cologne, and it has that lemonade type vibe to it. A little more on the expensive side, so I know if you're not one for wanting to keep purchasing something and you don't want to waste sprays, then, you know, I understand. I think this is discontinued too. I understand if you only want to do 2 or 3 sprays. Me, I don't really care because I have other fragrances that smell similar to this. So I do 7 plus with this. Performance is not the best off of my skin. Personally, I can't speak for anybody else, but I can do 7 plus on this and get away with it. That's just me. Dior Sauvage Eau de Parfum. I wore this the other day, and this performed like a champ. I wasn't a big fan of Sauvage, the original EDT, because it gave me a headache, but being around the Eau de Parfum is changing my mind. In the high heat, this did reactivate a little bit. Not much, but it did reactivate. When my body heated up, I started sweating. And it lasted a good while. Performance off of this is not bad at all. But the price you're going to pay for this, you may not want to waste sprays. So if you want to go 4, maybe 5 sprays of this, then that's cool. But you know my number, the lucky number 7. That's just me. I did more than 7 sprays, to be honest, though. I hit my pulse points and all that other stuff. And then I sprayed my shirt a couple of times, my work shirt. So the shirt is where it carried over the 7 plus mark. But not a bad fragrance. Another one that gives me decent performance. It's a little bit above average for me. I know a lot of people say otherwise, but it is from the house of Lacoste. It is what they call Lacoste Blanc, Lacoste Pure, Lacoste White, whatever you want to call it. It's the one with the little green alligator, the all white bottle. This is a very fresh, citrusy type fragrance. You can go more than 7 sprays off of this and get away with it. It's not offensive at all. I've worn more than 7 sprays of this on several occasions, and it just works for me. Another one that has been reformulated, but still smells great. And I know I reach for this a lot over my other clones, but this is Zara's Vibrant Leather. And of course, it is supposed to be their rendition or copy of Creed Aventus, which smells great. And if you don't want to waste your actual Creed Aventus, then this is a definite alternative to that. And you can wear 7 plus sprays of this and get away with it. It's not offensive at all, and so is Creed Aventus. I love this fragrance. I like it better than most of my other clones, like Insurrection Pure 2, although I got more compliments with Insurrection Pure 2 than I did with this one. This one to me just smells a little bit more refined, a little bit better. But you can get away with 7 plus sprays on this one also. Now, this one is one that's gonna chap people's you know what. Because this fragrance, to some, is a little bit polarizing. And I don't find it polarizing. I find this to be a masterpiece of a fragrance. And I'm not saying this because he gifted this to me. Because I had a sample of it well before I got this bottle. Even before I knew he was giving out bottles to certain people or to people. I think this is well blended. I've worn this in the heat. I've worn this to work at the hospital when I was still there. And it is from the house of Zaharoff. This is Signature Pour Homme. I have worn, if you go back and watch my video, I have sprayed at least 14 sprays of this. I sprayed on 7 sprays before I left my house the day I went to work with this on. And then I reapplied again like a little while later, and I didn't even have to. Weird, yes, I know, but that's just me, y'all. If I like something, I'm going to, put it on and I'm going to wear it to its full potential, but that's just me. Now, most wouldn't wear this in the heat. I would. You just have to learn to adjust your sprays. So instead of doing 7, I do know how to adjust sprays, guys. I do 4 sprays, maybe 3. It just depends. But I think a little bit better for cool weather, not cold. I'm not saying wear it in the winter, although you probably could. Springtime when it's not so hot, and fall when it's not cold or freezing outside, but it's cool. Perfect. Now we're getting into the more polarizing stuff. None of this should be worn in the springtime, with the exception of maybe one. And I'll start out with that one. From the house of Coach. Coach for Men is one that I think you can wear spring and summer. It's a fresh, citrusy type fragrance, but it can be polarizing. I did 7 sprays of this one time, and there was a young lady, the manager of Ross. I was quote unquote dating her at the time, and I put on 7 sprays of this. The first time I ever wore it, and I actually had a smaller bottle of this one. This is the bigger bottle, but I had on 7 sprays, and I was in my vehicle, and she got in, and I understand why, because I'm in an enclosed space. She got in and she said a few minutes in that her head was hurting because this was too strong. And once it dried down and it settled down and got closer to my skin, she said it smelled great. It smelled much better now. So this one, spring and summer, don't go beyond, I'll say 3-4 sprays of this. But it works. One, you should never wear more than maybe 3 or 4 sprays of, especially in the high heat. Maybe in the cooler weather months, you can wear a few more sprays, and even though it'd probably be too polarizing then. And I don't see how people consider some of these fragrances club fragrances, because you're dancing at a club if you're a dancer and your body's heating up, it's hot in the building. And why would you want to have on something that's going to be super strength like this? It is Invictus, the original. And like I said, I had a coworker that wore this all the time, and it got kind of annoying. It wasn't the fact that it was bothering me or whatever. It was just the fact that he wore it every day instead of trying to mix it up. And I don't feel like a guy should smell the same every day. I know some people have signature scents. I don't have a signature scent. But wearing something over and over and over, you get burnt out on it and you're tired of smelling it. This is something that you don't want to wear more than 2, 3, maybe 4 sprays of, because it's very polarizing. One that I feel like this house in particular, just about every fragrance that I have from this house is polarizing. So you never really want to go more than 2, 3, maybe 4 sprays of, is the House of Dua. And this particular one is Desire 2. Very, very sweet. I mean, super sweet type fragrance. You will run people out of the building if you go more than, a few sprays of this. I like it just for the simple fact that most fragrances these days don't perform well. And I can say the House of Dua puts oomph into their product. They last, they perform, they just smell great. The only thing I think a lot of people don't like is the fact that you get such a small bottle and you have to pay a hefty price for it. But yeah, don't do it in the high heat. Another fragrance that is a little polarizing, I've only worn once, and it smells great, and it is from the house of Versace. It is Darige Pour Homme. This is one you do not want to spray more than 2, maybe 3 sprays of, because it is a powerhouse, in my personal opinion. It does last, but you don't want to do the amount of sprays I would do. I would do 7, but for most, it's going to be too much. You're going to offend people, and I advise you not to do it. Another fragrance that you don't want to go more than maybe 3 or 4 sprays of, especially if you're going on a date in the spring and summer months and it's kind of warm. You don't want to wear something like this unless you're going to be in a climate controlled environment. Then this would probably work with a few sprays. But Armani Code Profumo is one that you do not want to go more than maybe 3 or 4, possibly 5 sprays of, because it can be polarizing. One you definitely don't want to go more than a few sprays of, but I'm a nutcase, and I've done 7 sprays of this before. I know a lot of people don't find this to be niche quality, as people say, but I like this one a lot, and I'm glad I have it. It is Bentley for Men Intense. And this is one you don't want to go more than a few sprays of also. Trust me, this thing is a powerhouse. You do not want to do at least 2, maybe 3 sprays of this one. 2 or 3 is enough. Another fragrance I think is discontinued, but a powerhouse fragrance you don't want to go more than 2, maybe 3 sprays of is Dior Homme Intense. And this ain't none of that reformulated crap. It's the real deal. This ain't that new line stuff that they got out. You do not want to do more than a few sprays of this. Now, I've worn this before. I've done 7 sprays and got away with it. But that's probably overkill for some people, I understand. But hey, that's just me. Another one that you don't want to do a lot of sprays of, and I think this one can be worn in the spring and summer also. But there's another fragrance that I have that I like a little bit better than this one. It's not as sharp. Is the Bulgari Aqua Atlantique. It gives you the same vibe. I talked about this in a video the other day. It gives you the same vibe, but a lot less harsh. But this is Versace Dylan Blue. This is one I wore 7+ sprays of one day, and I went and picked up my kids, and I said this in that same video, and my kids said I had on too much. So if I'm going to be outside somewhere, perfect, but I was inside my vehicle, and I can understand why they said it was too strong. I had to let the windows down. You don't want to go too many sprays of this one either. But like I said, I'm a nutcase, and 7+ sprays I did of this. And I don't know, I guess sometimes when you become nosmic or anosmic or however you say it to a fragrance, and if I can't smell it, I'm going to reapply some more. Even though everybody around me may be able to smell it, but that's just me. I'm going to save this one for last. Another fragrance you don't want to go a lot of sprays of is Mutamayez from Swiss Arabian. And y'all know those Middle Eastern type fragrances are very polarizing. I know when I walk past some of those guys, the colognes that they wear, the oils or whatever it is they be wearing, That stuff be so polarizing, man. But sometimes they smell so good. And I actually got my hands on this one, and I have another one that I didn't pull out, but don't do a lot of sprays of this one. 3 sprays, maybe 4 at max, and that's it in strategic areas. I wouldn't do more than 3 on your head, though. You may want to do 1 on the back of the neck and maybe 1 on each arm to keep it separated. So, one I know a lot of people don't like, but to me and people that are on the level that I am when it comes to fragrances, I'm not up there niche and indie and all this kind of stuff. I like these more inexpensive fragrances still. This one gets a lot of hate, and it is F by Ferragamo Pour On. You don't want to go more than a couple of sprays of this one because this thing is polarizing too. I like the scent. A lot of the bigger name reviewers don't like it these days. They came up liking it when they first got in the game, and then all of a sudden they turned their back on fragrances like this. So don't do more than maybe 3 or 4 sprays of this one. Don't wear it in the high heat, and you'll be good. Another one is Pure Tonka from Mugler. One of those sweet, polarizing type fragrances you do not want to do more than a few sprays of. I don't think I've worn this one yet, but I did spray it when I got it just to see what it smells like. And it's just one of those sweet type fragrances that is very polarizing. And you don't want to wear a lot of this, especially in the high heat. 1 or 2 sprays of this is more than enough. Trust me. And another one that is real polarizing. I was a little nervous about buying this one. I had a 30 ml of it that I found at Bell's. Damn, that Pure Tonka is almost taking my breath every time I inhale. I found a 30 ml bottle of this one, and it was expensive at Bell's, which is the equivalent to, I think, Burke's or something like that. I wore it a few times. I have worn it once in the heat, but I was at the hospital working, so I was inside the building. It can be polarizing. I got rid of the 30 ml and then ended up finding this 100 ml. It is the original Amen. A lot of people don't like this particular fragrance. Doesn't bother me at all. But you don't want to do too many sprays of this. 7 is overkill. 5 is probably too much too. You may want to stick with like 2 or 3, maybe 4, depending on when you're wearing it. But another fragrance that you don't want to go a lot of sprays with. And last but not least is my absolute favorite clone, in which I don't consider this anymore to be a clone. I think this is more or less more of a standalone. It does smell like a certain fragrance in the dry down, but the opening is far different. It is from Armaf. It is Club de Nuit Intense. Man, love it or hate it type fragrance. I love it. It can be polarizing, the opening. You don't want to do a lot of sprays of this. I have done 7+ sprays of this on several different occasions, and it got me compliments every time I wear it. No complaints whatsoever. And if it was a complaint, somebody said something, I didn't know anything about it. But this one is one that you may only want to do 3, 4 sprays of. I consider this to be an anytime type fragrance. Winter, spring, summer, or fall. Mine performs. I can't speak for everybody else, but smells great. It isn't harsh like most people say it is in the opening. It just smells great. Some say you don't want to do a lot of sprays of this, and I agree, but for me, 7, I've done plus, 7+, so it works. But that's my list, y'all. I'm already 34 minutes in. I know that's more than enough time. Some people may have fell off around the 10-minute mark, but I said this was going to be a long video. So pay attention to what season it is, how hot or cool it is outside. adjust your sprays accordingly. If you feel like you want to go an extra spray or two, then feel free to do that. It's yours anyway. You can do what you want to do. Just make sure you're not going to be around close quarters of a bunch of people that you may offend when you wear certain fragrances. Spray away when it comes to these spring and summertime type freshies, citrusy fragrances and stuff like that. Dial it back a little bit when it comes to these polarizing, sweet, heavy scented fragrances, and enjoy. Here's to smelling great, y'all. Peace.